So welcome to episode 8 of Raise the Floor. We've got Katy Leeson with us today. So Katy, I'm going to give a brief synopsis of what I know so far and then we'll get into it.
Okay.
So from MediaCom, social chain, relentless to coaching, studio owner, CMO and public speaker.
God.
That's a 30-second maybe.
It's a big list.
A big list and a big change, I'd say. So hopefully get into some of the detail of it today. But first off, like, how are you feeling? Are you okay today?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm spinning a lot of plates, but I'm feeling good at the moment. Yeah, I feel like I'm in a good direction of where I want to be, and yeah, things are good. Thanks.
Brilliant. And going back to where it first started, I was doing some research over the weekend, and starting at university. Did you fail your A levels and then went through clearing?
Yeah.
What was that kind of first setback like for you?
It was really interesting because throughout school I kind of coasted, never really didn't have to apply myself too much, but kind of was like bang average.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd do exactly the same with my A levels.
Yeah.
But during my A levels, obviously started from my school was in Oldham, so obviously I was out in Oldham all the time. Discovered boys, and also my grandma was really poorly as well at the same time, so like all these distractions were going on, so I just didn't kind of put probably as much into my studies as I should have done. So I wasn't expecting it when I got those results, like it was like the world had ended, because I just wasn't, I was so used to just everything was fine, everything just worked out, just enough just to get what I wanted. And I wanted to do journalism, but for no real reason apart from I just loved Heat magazine. I love celebrity gossip.
Yeah.
So I thought, right, I'm going to do journalism and then I can do something like that. But my spelling is awful and my writing's terrible. And my grandma, my dad, who was an English teacher, would like get so frustrated with me because I just couldn't do it very well.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I thought journalism was the route for me, but it was actually a blessing in disguise because I had to go through clearing, which meant that I found out about an industry that I moved into that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
So media and marketing.
Right.
And that's what happened. So yeah, it was the worst, but at the time, but the absolute best thing.
And when you went to, I was exactly the same, coasted, just did enough to get a little bit further on, and same with the A levels. I failed and went through clearing at Manchester Met, but I didn't learn. I just did the same thing in uni as well, I think. Did you find that, or did that kind of flick a switch and then you tried at uni? And
it's not that I tried at uni. I think I found the thing that I was really good at.
Right.
Whereas at school, like, it was very academic. It was like my school was quite traditional in the offering that it had. So it was, what did I do? A level, politics, sociology, English combined, and art.
Wow.
Which seems really heavy.
Yeah.
And then when I got to uni, and it was like media, advertising, watching films, listening to music, I was like, this is where I should be. I knew I was always quite creative, but wasn't couldn't figure out where that creativity sat. So being in uni and just enjoying it, and I think that's why I did well. I got a 2-1, and I still lived my life and had a great time, but also I just enjoyed the course.
And then what happened after uni? What was the first job?
I'd done some research into advertising because I've always loved adverts. I think like the Gorilla, Cadbury's one, and the You've Been Tangoed. I just thought there was so much fun and creativity in advertising. So I got a bit obsessed with that kind of thing, and I looked into different places while I was at uni, and I learnt about media planning and buying. And one of those places that I'd looked at was a place called McCann Erickson, which is out in Prestbury.
Right.
Prestbury? Yeah, Prestbury. I always get Prestbury and Prestbridge mixed up. So it's out in Prestbury. And I asked whether I could do work experience. And I got a week's work experience in the press team there. Didn't get paid for it. I was so fortunate that my mum and dad could support me to be able to do that. And that enabled me then to do a really good job in that week. And then I didn't know, but the whole media world is so well connected. So then when I was looking for grad jobs, that week's work experience, the person that I was interviewing with at a company called Feather Bank had also worked at the place previously with someone that I'd done that week's work experience with.
Amazing.
So I'd already got that recommendation for just getting involved and learning and being curious and wanting to do as much as I could in that week, which really helped with my grad interview. So yeah, then I started at a company called Feather Bank as in like grad on the grad scheme.
And what did that teach on the grad scheme?
Just how, like, I don't know, I learned a lot. I learned how to use Excel, like I am a whiz on Excel and PowerPoint now. But I just loved it. I loved about data. I loved understanding people. I think with media buying, you've got to be in the right places to reach the right people. Otherwise, you're wasting your clients' money. So just looking at data and understanding who was reading what magazine, what wastage was there for that audience, being able to plan that out, and then how to bring that creatively with the creative agency was one of the things I really loved. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And did you realise that was a bit of a niche, understanding the data that backed up the creative side?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's something that's always stuck with me. I love data. I love backing up what I'm doing with data. It's been something that I've always had with me, because Karen Blackett, actually, from Mediacom, said it we were in a meeting. She said, you can't argue with data. And it's so true. If you've got your data to back it up, you feel like a little bit more invincible with what you're saying.
Yeah, 100%.
But I just found it really fascinating how people were consuming different media and how you could grab their attention whilst there's all this other noise going on. So yeah, it was, I just loved it. Honestly, I just loved it. I never had the Sunday scaries.
No.
Ever. No, I just loved getting up and going to work and being around it and getting invited to all these places. It was fun.
What was that? Was that a kind of good education? And what culturally, because I know you're pretty big on culture, like what were you seeing then early on in your career that you kind of liked and wanted to lean into?
I loved my network that I started to build there. So there's a girl that was on the grad scheme with me. We started a week apart. We're still really good friends now. I feel so fortunate that I've still got all these connections that I built at the start of my career that have helped me get to where I've got to. She moved on to TikTok.
Right.
So when I was at Social Chain, having someone at TikTok that can be like, what is going on? How do I use this?
Tell me the inside rub on this.
Yeah. What is TikTok?
Yeah.
No. Just having her there and being able to lean on her is so amazing, which is a whole different topic, but it really worries me about the next generation of talent coming through when they're working from home all the time.
100%. It's a bit, I guess that after COVID, where everyone had to be furloughed and then a little bit of, you could still work at home, I don't think it's fully recovered from that.
No.
And I think that it's a massive risk. We don't have it at work where you can work at home.
That's good.
Not because of, I know it's really important for younger people now to have flexibility, but all the best things happen when you're together.
Yeah.
And I think for me, building a team is being in the same office and having the opportunity to create relationships.
Yeah, and learn.
Yeah.
Like, just being around those conversations in my early career, just sitting and listening to people that have been in the industry for such a long time, my bosses, people, just listening to those conversations happen just enabled me to learn so much quicker. And I think if I was at home on my own, I wouldn't be learning like that. It's really difficult.
How important was curiosity at that early stage?
I think I've always been curious, nosy. I think I said it before we started recording.
Curiosity, no.
Yeah. I think I've always loved learning, and I didn't really realise that until recently when I've done a bit more work on my own personal values. But I absolutely love just learning something new. I get so much energy out of it, and I talk quite a lot about comfy slippers. So in that role, once I knew that I'd learned what I could and I'd kind of hit my ceiling in it, and I was in my comfy slippers, it felt easy. I could do it with my eyes shut. That was the point when I knew that I needed to change. And I've always had something in me where my gut has told me it's time for something new and push myself a little bit more.
Because I get that. What is that feeling, do you think? And can you remember a time when you had that feeling?
Yeah, definitely when I was there, because I kind of just could do it.
Yeah.
It was like, I can't just settle. I'm not one that just sits and settles and just goes with it. Like, I want to constantly be developing. So there it happened. Mediacom, it happened as well when I moved internally. So I moved into a new business and marketing role because, again, I moved from Feather Brooksbank to Mediacom to do the same job, but just at a bigger agency. So the clients were bigger and the budgets were bigger. But I got to the same point because regardless of the budget, you're still doing the same thing. Excuse me. Sorry. So regardless of the budget, you're doing the same job. And I kind of had the same feeling there where I knew that I needed to push myself a little bit more. So I reached out to some potential new business clients, and we actually won one of them. And then that was when the head of marketing and new business said to me, "Do you want to work in this team?" And I thought, yeah, I'll give that a go. And
now's the right time.
Now's the right time because I've done
again.
what I needed to there, and I could now push on. And
that comfy slippers analogy, is that something that kind of you start realising over time, or was it like a light bulb type moment, do you think?
I think I just knew when it was the time. I don't know. I can't really explain it. I just kind of would. It's not boredom. That's not the right word, because that's doing the job a disservice. But just knowing that I could do more, I think, and also seeing future-proofing myself. I was so young at that point. I was like 21, started at 21, so I don't know what age I would have been, mid-20s at that point. And I kind of knew that I wanted to do really well in my career, so I couldn't just sit and settle and just lean into it. I had to kind of push on. So I think it was that, a bit of ambitiousness as well. Yeah.
And what was that, when you changed that job, what did that look like at the start?
The MediaCom.
Yeah.
That was like a baptism of fire. So working in new business in an agency in sales is not something I've ever done before. So it was like herding cats, because when you're doing pitches, everyone's doing their own day-to-day job, and you're trying to get people to do something outside of the jobs that the to-do list that they've already got. And you care deeply about winning that client, but for everyone else, it's just another task on a list of massive jobs that they've got to do.
Yeah.
So it was like trying to herd cats. I found it really stressful.
Right.
And I'm pretty determined, but I started getting migraines when I was doing that job. Yeah, I think I put so much pressure on myself to try and do it really well that it was too much on me a little bit.
What was going on there? Like, what did that pressure look like?
It was, I just wanted to do a really good job, and it was really hard when you're not in control of other people, because it really is hard getting teams together to do pitch work and do it really well.
And I'm guessing you weren't in charge of those teams, so you kind of influence people you're not the manager of.
Yeah, and I was fairly junior still. I was still in my late 20s, so it was still like me telling people what to do, or to help me and asking for favours. And yeah, sales is an interesting one that I'd never really been exposed to before. But the amazing thing that I did learn from my manager, John Marshall, who's still in the industry now, he set up another agency. He took me under his wing and taught me everything about the commercial side of the business. So I learned how commercials were built. I learned about how the agency was making money. I learned about contracts and what was in a contract and how we could get caught out or we couldn't get caught out. Those things were the most valuable things in that role.
Did you seek out his mentorship because you knew that you could learn stuff off him, or was that just like a natural thing?
I think it was just a natural thing because I was working for him in the new business team, and then I just was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? And he wanted help and I kind of wanted to learn. So yeah, the commercial side of it was the bit that I found really interesting as well. It's like, right, okay, if we do this and that we're charging them that's how much we will make off that. And that was the bit that sparked my interest in how a business was run.
And then what was next after MediaCom?
So I was always conscious that my background was in traditional media, and I knew that the world was moving more into digital. But in the start of my career, when the digital scene was building, it was SEO and PPC. So SEO and PPC is an interesting world, but it's not really one that sparks my curiosity. Yeah. And social wasn't there. It just wasn't a thing. You had Facebook, but you didn't really have anything else.
Yeah.
It was before even the Instagram started. God, it makes me feel really old. But I always knew that digital wasn't in my skill set. And I knew, again, ambition, wanting to future-proof my career. I needed to learn about it. But I wanted to do something really creative within that space as well, within social media. So at the end of coming to the end of my time at MediaCom, there were quite a few leadership changes and the agency was feeling different. So I knew at that point it was like, right, you need to learn something new about social media, and also it feels like it's the right time for you, because it wasn't what I was used to. So I was looking at, it was just at the time when Social Chain had done a Manchester welcome to Zlatan at the bottom of Market Street, that big, do you remember it? Yeah. So I'd seen that and I was like, that's really cool. So I just reached out Steve had started following me on Twitter as well at the same time, actually, as I'd seen that big advert. So I just reached out to him after he followed me and I said, what you're doing is really cool. You've got a few jobs on the website. Can we have a chat?
This is Stephen Bartlett.
Sorry, yes.
And
this is Stephen Bartlett.
Dominic.
And Don McGregor, yeah.
Yeah, it was their business.
Yeah, it was their business, yeah. So, yes, Stephen Bartlett. And and we just started chatting and then I went in for some conversations and kind of, it was just this group of really exciting kids doing amazing things. And I remember going in the office, open the door, and this dog just comes charging at me, barking at me, and I'm like, what the hell is going on in here? This
is unprofessional.
Yeah, there's a slide, there's ball pits, there's dogs. But yeah, I did a few interviews with them, and then they offered me the role of ops director.
Right.
So I handed my notice in at Mediacom and I started at Social Chain.
And did ops director feel like the right role for you at that time?
I had no clue.
Right.
I honestly didn't have a clue. But I knew that it felt really exciting.
Yeah.
And it felt like there was real potential to do something meaningful and be on a journey with a company that was just starting out. The average age of the company was 22.
Right.
I was in my early 30s. So they all thought the old lady was coming in to ruin the fun. That's what they said.
Really?
Yeah, and there was 30 of them when I started. But it was just so vibrant and the energy was great and it just felt exciting.
And did you feel you had that kind of elder states person as you went in?
No. I still don't feel old now.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm fun, I promise.
Yeah.
But I think because of my background as well, and I was coming from a big agency, I think what Steve had seen in me was the fact that I'd been at Mediacom and I'd learned about how the agency was running, and I could bring that knowledge to social chain and just see where I could help out.
Because it was such a young company, what was the shift in culture from being at a big agency to going into like the average age of 22?
Do you know what? It was speed. The thing that I absolutely loved about it was speed. I was talking to the ex-CEO of Mediacom last week, actually, and we were saying about how it's like an oil tanker to move because it gets so big and because it's part of a bigger network, trying to make change is really difficult. And I was starting to feel frustrated because I knew I wanted to do things, but I couldn't do it with any meaningfulness because the fact that it took so many decision makers to get anything done. Going into Social Chain was the complete opposite. It was like you had an idea, it was done. Steve was moving at the speed of light. One of his things is he can foresee what's next before anyone else. And it's a massive skill that just kept us propelling forward before anyone else knew what was going on. And that was so exciting to be part of because you just felt this momentum and you felt the excitement and you felt the journey, whereas before I was just feeling a bit stuck.
In that early time then when you've gone in, it's exciting, but you're kind of unsure about being an ops director.
Yeah.
What was there a moment there where kind of you felt, I don't know what I'm doing, or
every day? Well, I started as ops director, but my motivator for joining Social Chain was to learn about social from people who were doing it really well. So I went in thinking I know a little bit about structures and things like that. I can take what I've learned from Mediacom and put it in, but I don't really know much about social media. So I was going in to learn about that. And then I was doing that for 6 months. So we'd done a structural change. We changed how we weren't costing campaigns properly. We were just picking numbers out of the air. So I would put a bit of structure into that. And then Stephen, he wanted to open the New York office. So that was about 6 months in, and asked me to interview for a more senior role. And I thought, I don't know why they're asking me. Probably because I'm one of them, I've got a bit more experience in the industry. So I did the interview. I thought I'd cocked it right up. I went round to the coffee shop around the corner and cried after it.
Really?
Yeah, I just put so much pressure on myself to do it.
Why
I don't know. I just felt like I would never get it. I just felt like
And were you telling yourself that, like it?
Yeah,
after you didn't think
and then I just
it?
cried. I just thought I've messed this up. Like I haven't done myself justice. I was completely wrong because I got an email a few days later from Steve, just like the most glowing email. I remember I was sat outside my great auntie's house, just crying in the car with how nice the feedback was because I just didn't see it in myself. which is really weird. But I've not actually thought about that before. But yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, what's going on there?
I don't know. I just never saw it in myself. That I don't know what he saw, but I never really had that sort of belief, I guess, in myself that I could do that. But yeah, they offered me the MD role, and I was MD after 6 months of being in the company, which was wild.
Yeah.
Wild. And that's where imposter syndrome massively hit. Massively.
Explain that to me then.
So I obviously was learning about social media, went into that company to learn. And then the next thing you know, I'm 6 months in and I'm leading it. And I just thought everyone was looking at me expecting to know the answers. And I just felt scared. I was honestly petrified.
And did you think that at that time, like, the MD has to have all the answers?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you still think that now?
No.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, no. I think I still put pressure on myself. I don't like to look incompetent, and I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
So I was like, all these faces. I felt like all these faces were just looking at me, expecting to lead this really exciting company. And you've got to remember as well, at that time, we were in every paper. We were in The Guardian, we were in the Financial Times. We were just starting to get this amazing PR narrative. The biggest brands in the world were coming to us. I remember once we didn't even have the phone plugged in the office. Plugged it in, phone started ringing. It was Audi on the phone, just ringing us up to want to work with us. I'm like, phone, please, can the phone be plugged in every day?
Yeah.
But we had
great decision as MD there.
Yeah, I did a good job that day. But yeah, all these massive brands were just wanting to speak to us because of the notoriety we were getting in the industry.
And in that position, was there an imposter syndrome as culturally in the business, or do you think that was just specific to you? Did everyone just believe in the business that they should be coming to us?
I think Steve had a really good mission. Like, I think he knew what he wanted, and he is an amazing storyteller. So he can figure out, like, he knew the path for getting the PR. And I think the work that we were doing was good enough to attract those brands. So I don't think the imposter, I think it was me. I think it was more because I'd just gone into that business not really knowing. So being put in that position, I started putting pressure on myself.
And how hard was it going from, I mean, I know ops is kind of the day-to-day running of it, but going into MD role, you've got finance, HR, you kind of took away from that day-to-day operations and you're looking over like the whole business. How did you find that? It's
one of the hardest things, I think, when you go from doing the do to being a leader, because Don McGregor and I used to talk about this quite a lot. When you go from having a to-do list and knowing what your tasks are and knowing exactly what your role is, to going into a leadership role where your day can completely change with one thing that's happened, you feel like you're not doing enough for a lot of the time because you're so used to just being so efficient in your to-do list. But your to-do list is changing all the time when you're a leader. It's a really interesting shift that I don't think many people talk about. And the impacts that you are having are much bigger than actually doing that to-do list that you used to do, but you don't feel like you're doing as much.
Yeah. And do you think that kind of fed the imposter, that uncertainty feeds the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, 100%.
How did you cope with that?
Well, I didn't. I used to just sit in meetings and hide. Like, I didn't really own it. I was sat back. I didn't want to say anything that would make Social Chain look bad. I didn't want to let Steve down. I didn't want to get anything wrong. So I kind of hide a little bit, and I was frightened of saying anything in meetings, and I wasn't really the authority, and I knew that I couldn't do that. I knew I couldn't have that role and not give it my best shot. But Social Chain had as a benefit a therapist as one of our benefits. So I started to see Karen, and that was the transformation point for it because she identified what it was. I didn't know what it was before. I just felt like I was just going to get the sack every day. That's how I felt. Yeah. I just thought, right, today's the day. I'm going to get found out and this is going to be me out. But going to see Karen, putting a label on it that was imposter syndrome that I didn't even know existed. It's talked a lot about now, but it wasn't at the time. And being able then to deal with it in a way that helped empower me that was the changing thing for me.
What was that work? What did that look like, working on that specific issue?
She asked me what my expectations were or what I thought of an MD. It's like, what do you picture when you think of an MD? And in my head, the first thing that popped up was an old man in a grey suit who sits in a corner of an office and doesn't talk to anyone. And I can't be that.
Yeah.
So she was like, yeah. And it was really interesting after it. And when I do my talks, I talk about this. I show a slide. I put it into Google Images. I wrote managing director, and I looked at what Google Images said. Every single picture was a man in a suit. The first picture of a female MD was actually a Getty image. It wasn't even real.
Yeah.
So I was like, in my head, I was telling myself I wasn't an MD. And then also Google Images was also telling me I wasn't an MD. So those things were the reason. And it was like understanding what my expectations were of that role versus what the reality was and what it was that I could bring as MD of Social Chain, not just an MD in the world for the expectations of what I had. So how could I own MD of Social Chain? And just building that culture, having the right people, creating a great team, having real care about people and staff and what went on. I think having the migraines and understanding that stress at MediaCom made me a really empathetic leader, because I didn't want anyone to feel like they were under that much pressure that it was making them ill.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of that with me. And I think just recognising they were my strengths and they were the things that actually would make Social Chain grow was one of...
was there like a sense of responsibility once you'd gone through that process with the therapist? Was there a sense of responsibility to take on and change that perception for other women in business? Or
my why whenever I talk about anything is always, if I can help one person by talking about what I've been through, then I feel really good about it. So a lot of my content, my personal brand is quite vulnerable and quite authentic. Well, it is authentic, not quite authentic. It's because I know that if I talk about something that I've been through, I can help someone else that might be going through the same thing. So yeah, I like to be able to share. You can't be what you can't see, right?
Yeah.
I think felt a little bit of a responsibility for that.
I think because, well, like no one, I think up until maybe even 10 years ago, the whole perception was that MDs do know everything. And I would say most don't. I don't think anyone does.
No.
I think everyone's blagging it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for people growing up in industry to see that everyone's just normal and everyone has doubts about themselves. How did you build on that empowering yourself then? What were some of the practical ways you did that?
Well, I've learned that it never goes away. So even like every single career move or anything that's happened, the imposter always comes back. And I've used it now as an opportunity to grow. So I talked earlier about being really curious and enjoying learning and wanting to keep developing and not being in my comfy slippers. I would trade those comfy slippers every day for feeling like an imposter, because I know if I'm feeling like an imposter, it's a kick-on moment for me. So I've tried to use it in a more positive way than actually the thing that holds you back. So that's one of the things. And just understanding yourself and what you can bring to the role, and enjoy doing things differently. I think one of the things we did at Social Chain was just like, we had so much fun doing things differently and changing and challenging the norm and being this like scrappy kid that used to go in against these big agencies and win all these accounts. I quite like that. I enjoyed doing that. I love beating the big agencies. It was fun. So yeah, it's finding the enjoyment in that as well.
And so you had this sort of challenge that you're working on and getting better at, but you're also scaling a business from 30 to 130 people.
Yeah.
So how did the two work together?
I built a really good team. My team of directors were amazing. I poached people that I'd worked with before that I knew one would fit culturally and then would also want to be on the mission. So I had that real fire for the journey, and I found people that I knew were really good at their craft, but also I knew would have that fire for the journey as well. So Paul and Simon were my two directors that we worked so closely together. And we just were an amazing team. We never fell out. There wasn't one day that we had a fallout, which when you've got a leadership team is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We just knew what we wanted to do and did it really well. And I think building that team was the thing that helped me, one, overcome imposter syndrome, and then two, also just help the growth of the agency, because good people bring in good people.
Yeah. And what was the culture that you made having gone into that leadership position? And was that different to the culture that you joined?
No, I think the culture was always there. It needed a bit more authority. Like, we had no structure. It was just really creative work happening, but it was chaotic.
Yeah.
So it needed a bit more structure to it and a bit more just a bit more being a business rather than just being really creative. So that was one of the things we brought to it, was having a really solid business model as well as having really creative work. I think it really worked because of that. So I think Social Chain secret sauce at the time was having these kids who had started Twitter pages in their bedrooms, who just understood social because they'd lived and breathed it from the moment. They were just loving it. They just loved doing that. And they then would know the algorithm change before anyone else because they're living and breathing it every day. Couple that up with people who got the experience and know how to work within the industry, know how to speak to clients, because that was the other thing as well. You're going into the biggest clients in the world. You need someone who knows how to talk to them on their level. Yeah. So those two coupled together was really the secret sauce. It was people with experience, but really knowledgeable, people who knew about social media. And the thing that we had all in common from a culture point of view was care. Everyone just absolutely loved it. We were thought of as a cult because everyone was so passionate, but it was because we really cared about the social chain journey. We were on this journey. We just wanted to do really great things.
And that cult, did you kind of play on that a little bit internally?
No, I don't think we did. I think we just loved it. We just did really fun things. We just created an agency that we wanted to be in. And that part of that is having fun. So every Friday we used to do a thing called Creative Review, where we talk about the work, we talk about the great things that had happened in teams. And then we used to have like people walking around with bottles of Prosecco and sparklers and giving them out for people. And it was just fun. It's just stuff we could do that would create a fun environment as well as working really hard.
And was that, I guess, being so young, there would be some form of like drinking culture as part of it, like celebrating the wins. Did that ever tip over and get too much, or?
There were moments. I think it was a young team, so everyone used to like let loose. There were moments, a few HR things, but yeah, they're going to happen, aren't they?
Yeah.
But we worked hard and we played hard, I think, is probably a good way to do it. I think I was a little bit more out of it than that, though, because I didn't really like being part of the team going out culture. Because when you're leading a team and everyone starts drinking and you're out on a night out, people collar you. And you don't want to get it. Yeah. You don't want to be pinned in a corner asking about pay rises and what's going on. And I hated that.
Yeah, it's the worst.
It's the worst. Yeah. No one wants to be in that position. No. And people think that they can do it when they've had a drink.
Yeah.
So I used to just disappear.
Yeah, I think every Christmas do now. I'm like 3 or 4 drinks and I'm gone.
Yeah.
Because and I get it from their point of view. It's like their opportunity to.
Their moment.
So, yeah.
I just used to dance on the tables. You can't ask me questions if I'm up on a table dancing. So that used to just be up wherever I could.
By doing that.
Yeah.
And then at what point, so you've got to 130 staff, you're now running a really efficient team. What was the next big change?
COVID. COVID was the thing that, for me personally, that changed a lot.
Right.
Obviously, it changed a lot for everybody. But we'd grown, it was 30 to 130 people. And we'd gone a 650% increase in revenue in that time. So that was, 6 years? And it was loss-making when I started and profit-making when I left. And that is a huge amount of growth in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And COVID hit. And then Steve and Dom announced that they were leaving. And that was all very quick.
Yeah.
And again, imposter kicked in, and I put the pressure on myself that I was then in charge, because Steve had built this incredible business and was the face of the business. For him then to leave, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to fill those shoes? And I had 130 people working from home. Everyone was under different circumstances. We had different furlough, we had non-furlough, we had people working with their kids at home. We had people working in apartments without any outdoor space. There was just so many variables. And then people started saying to me, the culture's changed. And I took it personally. And I couldn't cope. I didn't cope very well. And I think I just hit burnout because I was trying to figure out something that no one had figured out.
Yeah.
And I put so much pressure on myself to try and fix it. And I've learned since, through going to therapy again, that I am a fixer. I've been a fixer since I was a child. So me going into fixer mode eventually led to burnout.
Right.
And I just knew that I wasn't in the right place to take it to the next level. It needed new thinking. It needed something else. Like, we'd done an amazing job. And me, Paul and Simon all decided that we were leaving. We actually handed our notice in on the same Zoom call.
Really?
Yeah, probably not ideal for the commercial director who's in Germany. But yeah, we just said, like, we're not the people to take it to the next stage of growth.
And I guess it's one thing that a lot of leaders face, but describe what burnout actually looked like.
I just felt, it sounds really ridiculous because it's obvious, but exhausted. But I just didn't have the brain power to think of anything creatively either. I couldn't see where the next turning point was. I couldn't see what was next. I just was surviving every day. Then the care had gone, and I knew as soon as the care had kind of gone and the people and the care for the people, I just got really lethargic about it all. That was the point when I knew that something had to change.
And how soon was that when you started feeling to when you left?
It's all a bit of a blur. To be honest, because it was so hard. I think trying to manage all the COVID stuff was all coupled up with it. So I think maybe 6 months to a year, Paul and Simon and I talked about it, like, when are we done? And then I think it happened a little bit quicker than we expected, just because we got to that point where we're like, we're not sure we are the right people for the next phase of social change.
What would you do differently now in that situation, if anything?
I wouldn't put so much on myself to fix the problem of COVID.
That's just an impossible task.
Yeah, I know. And I now know that was impossible, but I felt like it was my job to fix it, and it wasn't. And I think that's what I would do. I actually met a business coach just as I'd handed my notice in, and I sat on a Zoom call with them, and they were like, "You're not good," and I was like, "No, I know." And they came at exactly the right time, because I did about 6 months business coaching with them. It's a company called Form in Liverpool. And Mark, who was my coach, I don't think I could have got through that time without him, because he just unpicked what was going on that I didn't even recognise was going on, and then helped me talk it through and get to the point where I felt okay about the next stage, but I didn't even recognise it in myself. He did. And it's weird the way world works. It's like failing your A-levels, getting into the industry that you go into, Form getting in touch just randomly like that. Wasn't planned. They just reached out to me at exactly the right time when I needed that support. It's a strange time. That.
How important do you think it is to get coaches as a business leader?
I think you need an outside perspective, and I also think you need holding accountable. One of the things that I wasn't great at is holding people accountable at Social Chain.
Right.
Because I was so worried about people pleasing. So I didn't want to be like, you're not actually doing what you're meant to be doing. This is where we're meant to be and you're not there. I was so worried about people not liking me that I never wanted to do it. I hate getting feedback because I feel like it's a personal thing. So I didn't want to give feedback myself. And I think now that I am coaching, one of the things that I'm seeing is people just want someone to be holding them accountable and making sure that they're sticking on task. Because when you're a leader, there's so many things that get thrown at you on a day-to-day basis that you actually do You don't actually do a lot of forward thinking. You're in the moment. You're not thinking about the strategy, and you're reacting. You're not proactive.
Yeah.
So having a coach just means that you can get that little bit of clarity.
And as a coach now, what advice can you give to someone who's in that same position? Because I think that's something when people are a new leader, giving direct feedback and holding people accountable is the thing that is the hardest.
Yeah.
What advice do you give to people now?
My therapist actually said to me on that, you can be two things. So you can be business Katy and you can be personal Katy. Business Katy will always make the right decisions for the company that you're in. So if I was going back to Social Chain, what did Social Chain need? Not what would personal Katy need. So if someone wasn't performing and you needed to hit certain targets and things weren't happening, Social Chain needed business Katy to be on that. And I always say it's a bit like Beyonce and Sasha Fierce. She's got this sort of stage presence. It's okay to do that if that helps you in that people-pleasing mode, to have that sort of, what does the business need?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the best question to ask yourself as a leader. when you're in that thing of like, I don't want to give that feedback and I'm a little bit nervous about it, what does that business need? Because if you stick your head in the sand 9 times out of 10, it will get bigger.
Yeah, and I don't actually think it helps the person who's receiving it because they don't know.
No.
And if you don't give them that guidance, they are just sat there thinking they're doing a good job probably a lot of the time.
And people want to learn. I always think now, like feedback, I want people to tell me where I can improve because I want to learn.
Yeah.
I want to get better. But yeah, it was...
How have you got better at receiving feedback then?
I'm still not great at it. I still get nervous every time. I'm like, please tell me if it's good or not. But again, I try to look at it as a growth opportunity. And I want to be the best that I can. And I always want, especially now, I'm thinking what pops in my head is public speaking. If I get good feedback about my public speaking, I can do more of it. Yeah. So learning and developing that all the time and perfecting it and making it really good. So anyway, I'm going to do that is through feedback.
And how did you get into public speaking then?
When I started at Social Chain, Steve had a camera that followed him around all the time, and it was called the Daily Vlog. So the Daily Vlog used to follow him around. There was a camera guy called Dodds, and everywhere we went, there was a camera. Every meeting we went to, there was a camera following us, and I always said, "Do not put me on that camera. I don't want to be in it. I'm here to learn. I just want to be in the background." And I remember at one point that we were even in conversations with E4 about doing a documentary series of Social Chain. So we could have been like Made in Chelsea, like Towie, but off Social Chain, and that didn't end up materialising. But the conversations did get quite far. And I was always like, oh my God, how am I going to deal with that when I'm just trying to do a good job? When he made me MD, he put it as one of my KPIs that I had to start a personal brand. And I was like, how am I going to do it? Because I don't want to do it. I don't want to be on camera. I'm an introvert I can turn extrovert on, but I'm inherently an introvert. And I had to figure out my own way of doing that without not hitting my... Like, if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be doing my job.
Yeah.
So I started writing on LinkedIn. I started doing articles because I felt like I could start talking about stuff that was going on and figure out what people wanted from me without putting my face on camera. But as I said at the beginning, I'm not great at writing, and my spelling's not great. And I found it a chore. And one of the things with doing personal branding is you need consistency. You need to be on it all the time. And I couldn't do that if I was doing writing. So I needed to figure out my way of doing it that wasn't the Steve mold. And that's where my podcast came in. So I started doing, I shouldn't say this, but, and that was just a great moment for me to be able to, 1, get really good content, 2, have really good conversations, and 3, just talk about stuff that was happening. And I think that's where I found my niche, because it enabled me to do it in a really authentic way that felt comfortable to me. And that's where public speaking came in, because people then were listening to what I was saying and asked me to then start talking about it. So it started with imposter syndrome and talking about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And was that kind of the start of the podcast going into public speaking? Was that, did you feel comfortable in doing that, or was it just still always difficult?
Always difficult.
Did it ever get to the point it was comfortable, or?
No, but it's the feedback after, and it's what I said about my why. So talking about stuff that leaders weren't saying at the time. So the imposter syndrome stuff, just standing on stage saying, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm frightened I'm going to get the sack. That then led to people messaging me saying they felt the same. Or one girl messaged me after my first talk saying, I really want to get into this industry, different industry, but I was too scared to do it. But listening to your talk, I'm going to give it a go. A few weeks later, she got a job in the industry she wanted, and I thought, that's why. That's why I've got to do this, because I can help other people get to where they want to get to. So yeah, I just use that in the back of my mind.
And what would your advice be to people who are starting that journey of like personal branding?
Understand your why. I think find your authentic voice. It's so easy just to stick something in ChatGPT now, and just like you'd use that as a crutch, but you're at the risk then of just building a really generic, like just content that people won't engage with. And I think people want to learn from people. So what value can you add from your experience, and really like get that clear before you start? Because you've got to post. LinkedIn told me you've got to post like 2 to 3 times a week to start getting traction.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it before we started recording, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Things don't, like, I didn't build a personal brand and I didn't build 71,000 followers on LinkedIn overnight. It was consistency and then a few posts that resonated with people that just skyrocketed it. But I wouldn't have hit on those couple of posts that went viral if I hadn't have done all the consistency.
And how important why is being authentic so important?
I think because you're hit by so many messages every day. We're just in content overload that I know what I want to see and I know what I engage with, and you know when something's authentic, you know when something's real. And I think people are nosy. So if you're being vulnerable, people want to see it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
But I think that's why. And you're in a sea of just generic. I think we're hit with like between 8,000 and 10,000 ads a day we're hit with. But then you're also fighting against cat memes, Instagram models. You're I think we're on like nearly 6.7 social media platforms, each of us. So it's like you're fighting. It's really intense. So in order to get standout, you've got to have a point of difference.
And what would your advice be to give to someone who was looking for that point of difference? How do you find that?
Understand what gives you energy. I think me knowing that me giving advice and helping other people is what gives me energy, and that momentum then pushes me along because I want to do more of it. If you don't know that, you're just doing it for doing its sake. And I think you really need to find your why, and it's linked back to your values really, because if you know your values, you know what gives you energy rather than takes it away, and you're way more likely to do more if it's something that gives you energy. The
consistency is easier if it's something you care about, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's not constant. It's just you're doing it because you've got a reason to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the end of Social Chain, you handed your notice in. What was next?
I had been introduced to Gary Neville probably a few months earlier than I handed my notice in. So it was like coming to the end of Social Chain, and my LinkedIn was growing, and I had started having a bit of a personal brand then, and I was doing talks and all this stuff. And Skybet were one of our clients, and Skybet introduced me to Gary because Gary wanted to start LinkedIn. It was a platform he wasn't on, and he wanted to start growing his audience. So I remember going on a Zoom call. I got invited onto this call with Gary Neville. I'm an Oldham fan, right? So I've been watching Oldham since I was 6. So to me, wasn't interested in Gary at all. If anything, I didn't really like the man as he played for the team that I hated, because I blame United for Oldham's demise when we played in the FA Cup semi-final against him. So yeah, I was like, oh God, I'm not sure what this is going to be like. I turned up and there was like hundreds of people on this Zoom call because he'd invited his whole team. I expected just a couple of people. Right. There was just like loads of people on this Zoom call. And yeah, he was asking me about LinkedIn and how to start it. And we had a good chat. He then asked whether Social Chain would take on his personal brand and help him grow his LinkedIn. And I said no. It wasn't what we were doing. I could have very easily said yes for the profile. And I could have been like, yeah, we could do that. And I said no, because I knew it wasn't something that we would do a very good job at. So I said no, but I introduced him to someone else, Ash Jones, who owns Great Influence, who was helping me with my personal brand at the time, and did that introduction. And I think me just being honest with Gary just meant that we connected and started chatting about Oldham and the fact that I'd been watching football from 6 years old, and the fact that how much like my core memories of being a kid are tied to going to football. And then started talking about Salford and his visions for what he wants Salford to be. And Salford's a really interesting one because a lot of the fans are United fans who go to Salford as a second game, whereas fandom is actually set by the age of 7. So you've not got that history and heritage at Salford. So you've not got it from your dad who's like then passing it down to you. Yeah. So you've got to try and get those kids at 7 years old. Yeah. How do you then build a strategy that gets them? And it just put this really interesting fire in my belly that wasn't just all about HR and people and all the stuff that I was doing at Social Chain that was draining me. Yeah. It was the thing that actually gave me energy again. Yeah. So I did a project for him. I did some consultancy on Salford around that, like how to grow the fan base. And I'd already handed my notice in. I was working my notice period and I was presenting this consultancy work. And he said at the end of it, why don't you just do this for a job? I was like, oh, I could definitely do this for a job. So yeah, that's where that the guy was as simple as that. Didn't interview. There was no interview process. It was just doing something that I was passionate about, and my network had led me to Gary. And
then what did that look like over the next?
I was there for 2 years, and my time was split between Salford City and the overlap. And I just tried to absorb as much of Gary's way of working as possible. Both Gary and Steve have both got the ability to be able to see something before anyone else sees it. And it's amazing to be around people like that, because you can just watch the way they operate. How that man does as much as he does, I do not know. He can go from one business meeting knowing the numbers and finances and the operations on the university. 5 minutes later, he's in one about the overlap and he knows exactly the same thing. He is on point every single time. And I love learning from people that are just so operationally effective, because I think it makes you better.
Yeah.
And it's
is it a challenge though, like working with someone like that?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
He's an interesting character because he's on it all the time. So you have to be on it all the time. So I can't lie, it's intense, but because it's so much fun as well, it's like, you know that you're doing really fun stuff. And working in football is just the most fun I've ever had. Yeah. Really good. Really good.
And then what happened as that progressed? Did you kind of find yourself in the same position where you'd lost a bit of energy, or was that?
No. So footballing is an interesting world. The funding for Salford wasn't there for my salary. I was an expensive hire for what I was doing. There was a bit of change, and we weren't able to move as quickly with the fan stuff as we expected to. So basically, I was running the media team, which I loved. I loved doing, but they could have hired someone more. But cheaper to do that job, to be honest. Yeah. And I kind of knew at that point that it felt like it was coming to a natural end. Yeah. I could have stayed on the overlap. I could have carried on doing what I was doing there. But I just thought, this is the moment that I could go out and see what I could do in the world. I honestly believe I will work with Gary again in the future. I think that there's something else there at the right time, and being part of the overlap and seeing Stick to Football launch, and oh God, it was so good. Yeah. It was just so good to watch people love that programme.
Yeah. It's been such a success.
Yeah, and it's amazing to watch. But I was ready to see what I could do and be me. I think I've been Katy, who's worked for Steve and Gary, and now it's me now.
And how hard was that?
It's horrible. I still don't like it. Like when I've just signed with a speaker agency, and it's like, it's now about me. It's not about what. And I led with, hi, I'm Katy from Stephen Bartlett's social chain. I've also worked for Gary Neville's Overlap and Salford. And they're like, no, this is you now. Yeah. And Steve actually messaged me after I'd signed for the speaker agency, and he just said, you've got such an interesting career arc that I think people are going to want to hear the story. And I didn't even think about it. I just thought people wanted me because of the fact that I'd worked for Gary and Steve. So yeah, it's weird.
Have you found it difficult, to use your phrase, kind of seeing around the corner, or is that not what you want to do with what you're doing now?
I think I've opened the content studio because of that. I've seen an opportunity there. I've always liked to be kind of at the forefront of what's going on. And I know how much content's needed to be made. And I know that there's a big movement in community building. There's a massive loneliness pandemic, and just having a space where people can bring their communities together. So that's why Blank Space was started. One, to solve the problem of content needs and making content in the right way. And two, to help have a space where people can bring their communities together. So I think that is my lean into that. And then just being interested in learning about what's next. I quite like being a consultant because I can kind of dip in and dip out of that as well, keep my toe in the water.
And how, I guess, like on that point, you kind of opened up, you've got multiple revenue streams now, which I would say, I don't know, 5 years ago, not many people did that, but it seems to be something that the younger generation are so open to now, of whether it's creating communities or influencers. Like, what have you learned from that kind of setup of multiple income streams?
I've kind of had a year where I actually went for breakfast. So I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what I need to be. I need to be an offering, and I don't know what it is. That's how I felt when I left. So when I left Gary, I did 8 months at Nadine Marabi, which it was, even though I was a consultant, it felt more like a full-time role because it was 4 days a week. When I was fully out on my own when that ended, I kind of put pressure on myself to figure out what I was and how to push myself and what to sell. But I had breakfast with a lady called Heather, Leadership Heather. She's amazing at content, and just launched a book on leadership. She's brilliant. And she said, just have a year where you just like see what people want from you, finding out. Yeah. And I didn't even think about doing that. I thought I needed to have the answers straight away. And I've had a year where I've had all these multiple income streams, and now I'm gonna start to put goals in place for certain things, not all the plates, because there's too many plates. Yeah.
And what advice would you give to someone starting out on that career path now? Would that be the same advice, kind of do a year and find out?
Yeah, or a time when you can then figure out what it is people want from you, but also what you enjoy doing as well. Because I could take on consultancy clients. I'm really very privileged with the network that I've built, that I don't really have to try too hard to get consultancy clients because people want me in their business, which is amazing. But my business coach also said to me, this is your time to pick things that you're going to have fun in. So that's all I've done. And I think anyone starting out, as long as you're as lucky as I am, I'm very lucky, I know that, I don't have to worry too much. I can make the choice. I've done it with fun in mind. So working out what people want from you and what they're willing to pay you, and also what you can have fun in, is probably a good starting point.
And do you think that'd help, or do you think that will contribute to you not having burnout again, having that choice and sort of being the one to be able to make for your own path type thing?
Yeah, I think I felt it a little bit this year though, because I've been spinning too many plates. So my brain and my energy is going into so many different things. So trying to think of what to do on my consultancy clients, thinking about what my coaching clients need, thinking about writing my next talk for that talk that I'm doing tomorrow. It's like all these things take a lot of brain space. And that I think I've struggled with. I've had a bit of family illness as well this year, so it's not been an easy year. And I think that I've hit a bit of a wall there. And I need now to kind of just double down on one or two things, not everything. Because whenever anyone sees me, they're like, how are you doing it all? I don't know, just do it. I just do it. I just do it because I enjoy doing it. But I think I need to look after myself a little bit more than just I have been doing.
Something that you said before as well just cropped up to me, like how will you do that if by nature you're a people pleaser? How are you going to manage that?
Yeah, I've started, like, therapy's been amazing for the people please inside of me. I've realised that if you people please, you're not actually doing yourself. People won't like you anymore. They'll actually just take advantage, or they'll get frustrated with you because you're just saying yes to everything. So I've tried to put boundaries in, and I'm now putting boundaries in for myself. And I'm trying to put boundaries in, so I'm trying to run my own business, me, as a business, rather than, because at the first I was just a bit like, oh, it's just me, so I'll just do it.
Say yes.
But I'm trying to actually run it as a business now as well. So I've just hired a VA just to help me.
Very good. She's very good.
Oh, Amy?
Yeah.
Good, I will pass that on.
Got a great email back from her. Like, dead engaged. I was like, that's a good VA. That.
She's great, isn't she? I've just started working for her, but I recognise that I just wasn't doing a good job in my own business because I was doing too much. And I was trying to organise dates, and I was trying to organise where I was meant to be, and I was trying to organise travel. And I was like, why am I doing this? I can get someone to help me, and it'll free up my brain space. So, I think that just running my own consultancy as a business now, not just like messing around.
Yeah, with your time.
Yeah.
Amazing. And one final question that we asked. So the reason this podcast started was from a book called Do Hard Things, and it's about being consistent, but always putting yourself outside your comfort zone, and why that's so important to grow. But also that the consistency, you don't have to come in and be a 10 every day. You can, as long as you're consistent, you can raise the floor. So what would your advice to people be to raise the floor?
Care. Deeply care about what you're doing. And then on the days when you're not running at 100 miles an hour and you can't do that, the care is there. I always say I will always hire and I will always work with people that care about what they're doing. That is my main number one.
I love that. Follow-up question. How do you find that out in an interview? What's the question you ask to find that out?
You can kind of see it in how they talk about it. It's like the passion. It's like, what do you care about? I always ask in every interview, what 3 words would your friends and family describe you as?
Yeah.
Not what would you describe yourself as, but what are the 3 words that your friends and family? And you can kind of see the energy change in someone when you ask them that question.
Yeah.
But you can get a feel with someone who really cares. You know when someone's put a real effort into a task. You know when someone's done their research on a company.
Yeah.
They're the things that demonstrate care. And they're the things that I think will get you way further than any sort of experience, brain power, intellectual.
And do you think there's still a lot of people out there that care and show that passion?
Yeah, I think you can find them. I think it's harder. I do think it's harder. I think care is going into the wrong places. I think we talked about people wanting multiple income streams and people wanting to be influencers, and I think that seems like an easy win. I think people think that there's an easy way to make money, and it's not. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard.
As you're showing.
Yeah. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But again, even to do that, you've got to have care.
Yeah.
But I think it's finding what you care about, but finding the right team when you're in that company of people who do care as well. You'll find them. It just takes a little bit more assessment.
Amazing. Thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.